regarded the Saudi family, the kingship, the royal family, as hopelessly corrupt. Largely because they were hopelessly corrupt. And his original struggle was against the Saudi royal family. But they were too powerful for him to oust them. Why were they too powerful for him to oust them? Well, they're being backed by the Americans, right? So America became the second sort of target. You've got to get rid of American aid so that the Saudi family will fall, so that the land of the two cities, as he calls it, the two cities being Mecca and Medina, the holy cities, can then return to its full glory and its place in the world and so forth. So America wasn't his original target, nor was the Arab, the Israeli-Palestinian thing. It was the Saudi royal family. But he's got to get rid of the Western powers that are backing the Saudi family first. I mean, he can't kind of get rid of them. So, I mean, along the way, he wants to destroy Israel, which is a non-Islamic, in fact, an anti-Islamic, as he sees it, implantation in the middle of the Arab world. And think of the geography here, right? You've got two halves of the Islamic world, North Africa, right, the Maghreb, and you've got the Middle East. And Israel sits right between them. It divides the Arab world in half, right? So, so Israel is a problem. Muslims living under Jewish control is a problem. All pro-Western dictatorships in the Middle East. Now, pro-Western dictatorships in the Middle East. So we're talking about Jordan, and we're talking about Egypt, in addition to Saudi Arabia, right? At least those two are also part of the problem. And what he really wanted to do is remove un-Islamic notions of secular democracy from the House of Islam. All right? Now, there are, besides Egypt, which is technically secular, and Jordan, which is technically secular, there's also Syria, which is technically secular and a democracy. Doesn't work well, but I mean, technically that's socialist, actually. And of course, Iraq, pre-Hussein, which was also socialist, meaning secular, right? So all of these are a problem. With this accomplished, bin Laden has said that he wishes to unite all Muslims and establish, by force if necessary, an Islamic nation adhering to the rules of the Salaf. Now, most Muslims don't want that, and he's willing to do it by force. So Al-Qaeda is really a threat to a lot of folks, not just to us. Now, he issued what we call mistakenly a fatwa. He's not he has no authority to issue fatwas. What he issued was what's really called a hukm, or a wise opinion. It's related to the Hebrew word hakam or something. A hukm saying it is the duty of Muslims around the world to wage holy war on the United States, American citizens, and Jews. Well, let me catch the next sentence. Muslims who do not heed this call are apostates and therefore should be murdered. I didn't write that down there, but that's what he means. Because an apostate is even worse than a non-believer, right? So this is the view of Al-Qaeda. It's the base for reinvigorating Islam, beginning with Saudi Arabia, but eventually bringing it over to the whole world. And Israel and America are targets because we keep these corrupt Saudi family in power, right? So that's Al-Qaeda, and he's perfectly willing to use force, as you know from the bombings today, to bring this about. Okay, so that's Al-Qaeda. So then let me talk about the Taliban. We're a little bit different group. The word Taliban means student. So there's the students or seekers. They're a puritanical Salafi sect, but not from Saudi Arabia. They really come from Afghanistan, and actually from the Pashtuns in Pakistan. So they're sort of a tribal group as well. They were founded in Pakistan by Afghani refugees. So they had this love-hate relationship with Pakistan. I'll give a little bit more complicated story here based on an Indian Muslim reformist movement that was established to fight the British, and which was heavily influenced by Wahhabism. So there's some Wahhabi in them, there's a little bit of Deobandi Islamic reformist movement in them. There's a lot of Pashtun, what they call Pashtunwala, Pashtunic ways of doing things. They take credit for ousting the Soviets from Afghanistan, and then they ruled according to strict Islamic law. They thought they were doing exactly the right thing, until their overthrow in 2001. And now they're trying to get back into power. And their main enemy, of course, again, is us, right? The great enemy. So they will sometimes cooperate with Al-Qaeda, but sometimes not. And one of the big differences, there are a couple of differences. Al-Qaeda is Saudi Arabian and they're Afghani, but the Wahhabis are Arabs and they're Pashtun, and Arabs and Pashtuns do not get along. So they'll cooperate when they have to, you know, they're going to hold their nose, they'll cooperate, but they really don't like each other and they don't really work together. And they speak different languages and they have different versions of Wahhabi. So we sometimes kind of lump them all together as Taliban and Al-Qaeda are the same, they're really not. But they have a common idea of ridding their land of non-Islamic elements, including foreigners, of course, and all kind of Western influence, which can mean all kinds of stuff, including modernity, well, especially modernity, globalization, anything like that. And certainly anything that takes your loyalty away and destroys Tawhid. And this is what I've said a couple times already, that their target is primarily the Muslim world. And one of their teachings also is, let me come back to this concept of Tawhid, it's not only that God is unitary, but that as a true Muslim, you identify and associate so closely with Allah that there's a kind of Tawhid between you and God. There's this entire unity when everything is now aligned with God's will, right? If you are not aligned with God's will, I mean, as they're reading it, as they're interpreting it, then you are violating Tawhid, which is the basis of Islam, and you are the problem. And because you're masquerading as a Muslim, right, you're even a worse problem, right? You're the enemy inside the castle, so to speak. So that's why Muslims are more targets, I mean, wayward Muslims, I should say, from their point of view, are more targets than we are. I mean, we don't even pretend to be Muslims, right? And we're not in the middle of their cities, we're not in the middle of their villages, we're not running their government, we're not teaching their kids, right? Those are the real enemies. Everybody cheerful now? So this is the Muslim Brotherhood. And I can say a lot about the Muslim Brotherhood, but I won't. The Muslim Brotherhood was founded in 1928. And it's Egyptian. And if you watch the news, you'll notice a lot of leaders of these groups. You know, like Osama bin Laden's lieutenants and all are all from Egypt. Egypt is a breeding ground of this. Founded in Egypt in 1928 to get rid of British and French influence, to bring Egypt back to true Egyptianness and true Islam. Egypt is the leader of the Muslim world and all of that. You can see the symbol, right, the cross swords, that tells you something, the Quran. And one of his quotes that I have up here, God is our objective, the Quran is our constitution, the Prophet is our leader, struggle, jihad, is our way, death for the sake of God is the highest of our aspirations. Right? And you can think of the Islamic Brotherhood in the 20s and 30s as the Egyptian version of fascism. Right? So, I don't know if they had brown shirts, but they had schools, they had clinics, they had youth groups, they had, you know, all of the kind of trappings of a fascist movement, and were creating an alternate government to what was then the Egyptian government.